Okay, we're going to start. Hi, everybody. Thank you all for coming. I'm so happy to see you, for those that I could see or just feel your presence. I see a lot of the names. I think it's really amazing that you're choosing the middle of your day to tune in to learn Torah and to be inspired. So really, kol hakavod. The topic that we're going to speak about today is something I never spoke about before, and I'm so excited. I'm going to tell you how I got into it. I don't call myself an expert at all on the topic. Actually, even right before the class, I was consulting with people to make sure I had all my facts right. But I want to share with you what I do now. So I'm going to share my screen, and we will get started. Okay, so the topic, as you guys saw on the flyer, is lessons in love and responsibility, how the love of one man inspired the world movement. Now, I want to ask you a question, and I guess we'll answer to yourself, or if you're sitting next to someone, you can answer that person. I want to know what comes to mind when you think of Chabad. When you see the word Chabad, when you hear it, what do you think of? Okay, I'm going to give everyone 5 seconds to think. And now I want to share some of the things that I associate with when I think of Chabad. First, and I think this is a lot of people, one is, are you traveling? Are you going on vacation? You need kosher food? What do you do for Shabbat, holiday? What do you do? Google nearest Chabad house. And I think Chabad has a lot of worldwide popularity because, you know, wherever you go in the world, it doesn't matter where, you will be able to get your Jewish needs met and find kosher food. So that's one association that people have with Chabad. Other common associations, being stopped, I'd say for the men, if you're in New York City and people are asking you, Jewish, did you put on tefillin? It's not only in New York City, it's all over the world, in Israel, all over the place. Or maybe for women, we see in the bottom left picture, Shabbat candles, people giving out Shabbat candles, huge public lightings of the Chanukah on Hanukkah, or the occasional car driving down the street with a Chanukah. I remember once when I was a teacher in Barkai in Brooklyn, one of the secretaries, she made an announcement. If anyone has parked a car with a big Chanukah, you're blocking a driveway. And like, we all laughed because it was none of us, no one in the school was associated with us, but we all have come to learn that it has to do with Chabad. And another association that people have is this one. The people, we know that, so I use the term Chabadnik, it means someone associated with Chabad. They're the people waving around the yellow flags. They're the ones saying that the Rabbi is Mashiach, and the picture in the middle, who we're going to talk about a lot, a very famous picture. You see it sometimes randomly on street poles. If you look at the kippah on the right, sometimes you see people wearing that kippah, and that's another association that people have. They're the people that believe that a person who passed away is the Mashiach, and how could it be, and it's crazy, and it can't be. Now, my encounter with Chabad, one summer, I was a counselor in IMED, and one of the counselors was Chabadnik, and he started, like, not that he was sitting and sharing everything that he did, but we learned about a lot of interest, like, he had all these, like, customs, which I thought were weird, and I'm a tour guide, and I guided 2 birthright trips. Now, birthright has many different branches, and one of the branches is called Mayanot, and it's a Chabad branch. And what's unique about it is this trip, you get 2 American staff members that come and help you guide, and one of them is a Chabad rabbi. And like, I never really got it. And one night I was at a wedding, happened to be the Chabad friend that I guided with in the summer was also there. And between birthright and just like questions I always had, I looked at him, I said, I don't get it. Like, what's the big deal with the Rebbe? Like, why is everyone so obsessed? Why are the pictures everywhere? And then what I told him next, I said, I want to learn more. How could I learn more? What do you recommend I read? And I wasn't coming from a critical point. They're so weird. What's wrong with them? I was really, really, really coming with an open heart. And I want to learn. There's something that I don't know about. Let me be more educated. And for me, one of the best ways to educate myself, other than asking Chabadnik's questions, I said, I want to read a book about him, and then I could form my own opinions instead of like the little things that I'm picking up here and there. So this friend recommended a book, and the book he recommended is called Rebbe by Joseph Telushkin. I bought it on Amazon. It is one of the best books ever. I hopefully after this hour to 40 minutes, you guys will be so inspired that you'll want to buy the book. It's sold on Amazon, hardcover, sold under Kindle, and it's about 600 pages, and I couldn't put it down. And a lot of my knowledge about Chabad and what I'm going to share with you today comes from this book, and it also comes from questions that I asked the staff members or that I asked my friends, and literally before this class, I have like my 3 Chabad consultants. I said, why does Chabad do this? And why do they do this? And why do they do that? And I don't profess at all to be an expert because I'm not. I did not grow up with a Chabad background. I didn't even know what Chabad was. I'm going to, towards the end of the class, I'm going to talk about just some like basic key concepts that everybody knows, and everyone knew it except for me. Just like one example, I would have people ask me, did you ever go to 770? I'm like, huh? What is that? What's 770? They're like, you live in Brooklyn, right? I'm like, yeah. And you never heard of it? I'm like, no. So it's like, it blew my mind that I grew up in Brooklyn and Chabad Center in Crown Heights is there, and I just didn't know a lot. So I educated myself, and it was really, I'm so grateful. What a journey. And I want to share that with you. Okay. So the first thing I want to say is the man that you see pictured to the left, his name is Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. His nickname is the Rebbe, but really the way the Chabadniks pronounce it is the Rebbe. And he died in 1994, and a few months after he died, he was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal. What is that? That's an award that's very, very rare to get. It's an award by the American government given to civilians, and it's designated for those who have performed an achievement that has an impact on American history and culture that is likely to be recognized long after the achievement. Which means that the United States of America, non-Jewish country, recognized the actions of this man living in Brooklyn to be so impactful that he not only impacted during while he was alive, but they anticipated his impact would be reached long after his achievement. Why? What did he do? I think if someone's getting this, it's enough of a impetus. So what did he do? What was so great? So let's see. One of the things that the Rebbe is most famous for is his unconditional love for humankind. Now, throughout the generations, there's different chachamim that they press different mitzvot. And we know that Rabbi Akiva, he says, and the Rebbe really, for him, that was, he didn't order mitzvot like number 1 important, number 2 important, but he lived his life by this. And it's a very unique thing because for him, what he said, if a person is Jewish, I love him and that's enough for me, and I don't care how religious he is, which is very revolutionary back then and even nowadays, because number 1 person guilty of this. We look around the street, we look at the way people are dressed or what they do, what they believe. He's religious, he's not so religious, and we're automatically judging people. And for him, there was no such thing as like Jews that were far from Judaism. He goes, who are we to judge who's far and who's close? Are we inside the heart? Are we inside God's head? And he just had this love, not only for Jewish people, for humanity. And we're going to see how this love was expressed. And one of the really nice things he said, which I think he really, really hit spot on, I never thought of this way. He said, let's say you're someone and you want to inspire other people to be Jewish or to have more love. So he says, loving God alone is not enough. Without love of Torah and love of one's fellow Jew, the love of God will not endure. On the other hand, where love of one's fellow Jew exists, this will eventually bring also a love of Torah and a love of God. For him, the foundation to bringing people close to Judaism was love. Love of what? Love of God is nice. Love of Torah is nice too. But love of human beings, because that for him was the basis, and everything grew from that. And there's a famous story of Hillel HaZaken that someone asked him to teach him the Torah on 1 foot, and he said, what you don't want someone to do to you, what you don't want done to yourself, don't do to other people. And he really, really lived his life like this. Now, it's very nice to love everyone. Okay. Practically, what does that mean? What do you do? Which brings to one of this is maybe the most big reaching, constant example of how he put this into action, and it's probably the most famous one. I didn't actually hear your responses when I asked you, when you hear Chabad, what do you think of? But he had this idea And he called, if you see on the top, it's called shluchim. Shluchim from the word shlichim, messengers, but because that's how they pronounce it, shluchim. What you see in the picture are thousands and thousands of people. That what's the Rebbe's idea? He says, I want to reach Jews from all over the world, and I can't do it alone. I need messengers. So I'm going to get a young married couple, usually in their 20s, and I'm going to send them to a remote corner on earth, and there they're going to help. If there's one Jew, that's enough of a reason for me to send. I want to ask you, if you have kids, or even if you don't, if you siblings, how would you feel, well, I'm going to choose kids, about sending your kids to a very remote corner of the earth where they're not going to be living in a Jewish community, they're not going to be able to find kosher food. Your kids are going to go to school with people that aren't Jewish. They're not going to have a Jewish environment, and you're going to live there for the rest of your life, because this shlichut, it wasn't go for a few years and come back. It was forever, because the Rabbi believed that if you want the people to trust you, they need to know that you're there long term and you need to create a relationship with them. It's like a crazy concept. You are putting yourself out, and there's no one else there. And my Chabad friends that I mentioned I had before, both of them came from families of shluchim. And they said, like, the sacrifice that this family is making, how do you know that their kids are going to be Jewish? It's nice that they're helping everyone else, but what about their own kids? And also another interesting thing, a lot of them don't work. Not because they believe in like that you should study Torah all day. The reason why they don't work is because to run a Chabad house with thousands of people coming and needing things is a full-time job. So where do they get the money from? So they are expert fundraisers. They constantly need to fundraise all the time. So it's a job that never ends. And now you're living in this place and you're not surrounded by a Jewish community. And how could you guarantee that your own Judaism is going to be intact? And doing this was something that the Rabbi believed in more than anything else. And he said, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid that if I send a couple out, their Judaism is going to be compromised. He says on the contrary. And he really, people, and we're going to get into this in a few minutes, when they hear a term Rebbe, they say, oh, all they do is follow their Rebbe, they don't think for themselves. And the Rebbe actually, what he did is he led a generation of leaders, because to be someone that's living in a community that's remote and stay strong to Judaism, and I asked my friends, I said, what are the percentages of kids that leave Judaism because they're not surrounded? They don't know what percentage was, but they said most of the kids do remain Jewish. And that's leadership, to be the only ones, and you're standing strong, and now you're creating a revolution. And he said this is the way we could reach everybody. And a really beautiful quote by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who had the privilege of meeting the Rebbe a few times. He said, if the Nazis searched out every Jew in hate, the Rebbe wished to search out every Jew in love. And like, for someone to love you just from because you're born Jewish, and to show you all this kindness, and they really love it. It really, like, again, I'm referring to the Chabad people I know. So one of the counselors, he got married, and I went to his wedding, and all his siblings were there. They all run Chabad houses in Texas. And I was speaking to his sister, and she said, I'm having hundreds of people over for Leila Seded. And I was like, and you really like it? She goes, yes, I'm thrilled. I'm so happy. They genuinely love it. Now, how does the Rebbe get them to genuinely love it? It's because they believe they're doing a mission that's higher. They're not doing it for themselves. They're doing it at the end of the day for God. And that for them is enough to inspire all this love. And they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart. But still, it's a really revolutionary kind of idea. And anyone that has experienced the kindness of Chabad, wherever you may have been, it's remarkable. Now, how does this happen? So in order to understand this, I want to give a little bit of background of Chabad. What does it mean? What does Chabad stand for? Where does it come from? What do they believe? So first, we need to back up a little bit. Chabad is part of this greater movement called Chassidut. And in the 1700s, there was this rabbi. His name was Rabbi the Baal Shem Tov. He founded this concept of Chassidut. Now, there's a lot of different types of Chassidim. And if you walk the streets of Brooklyn or the streets of Israel or other places, and you see the way they dress, so just like, I mean, every group of people has like their codes, that if someone wears a certain type of kippah or a certain type of skirt or a certain type of whatever, already your mind is labeling them as a certain person. So the Chassidim, if the person's like black hat is flat, if it's tipped, if it's certain kind of material, if it has a bow, if the bow's on the side, the bow's on the back, what kind of coat, like every single thing has a meaning. And I don't understand it, but they of course do. and it's all different kinds. So I put, you see on the list, all these types of all these different types of Chassidut, all derived from what the Baal Shem Tov created, and Chabad is one of them. Now, the leader of Chabad, or of any Hasidic sect, in Hebrew it's called an Admor, which you see Rashi Tevot, Adonenu, Morenu, Rabbeinu, and in English, or maybe it's Yiddish, it's called a Rabbi or Rabbi. Now, the relationship that Rabbi has with his Hasidim is a little bit different than the relationship that maybe we have with our rabbis. A lot of, I'm going to talk about myself because I don't know that I can speak for everyone in the class, but if I have a question, I want to do it, I go to my rabbi. So if I have a halachic question, I want to about kashrut, I want to about something. If I'm making a big life decision, I'll speak to my rabbi, see what he thinks. But in general, like most decisions, like I make on my own, friends, family, I don't go to my rabbi for every decision. Now, Hasidim, their relationship is a whole different level. They'll go to their rabbi for advice on operations and jobs, and if they need to get married, and where should they live, and for everything. Now, what is it? Why are they going to him for everything? It has to do with one of their beliefs. They believe that their Rebbe, and it's not just anyone, it's a very unique person, and we'll see in a minute how many Rebbes Chabad had to begin with. They believe that he's on a different spiritual level, and he reached the point where he's able to negate his own ego and really be like on the spiritual plane. So when they're getting advice from him, they're not getting advice from him, they're getting advice that's inspired by God, and they believe because of his level of spirituality, his advice carries a certain weight, and they go to him for more things than usual. So that's just to understand how it works. Now, if a person has that kind of relationship with their rabbi, and the rabbi is asking them or telling them, I want you now to go to China, and I want you to live to China, and you're going to see baracha there, and they look at this person and they trust him, then they're more inclined to do something like that. Now, Chabad, it's Rashi Tevot, it stands for Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at, and other things that are just nice to know. The founder of Chabad, so altogether the 7 rabbis, his name was the Alter Rebbe. In the 1700s, that's when Chabad was started. And he wrote this famous work, it's called the Tanya. So if you go to any Chabadnik and you ask them about the Tanya, they'll know what it is. The Tanya is about the philosophy of Chabad. And just like people maybe do Daf Yomi or they do Shnai Mikra B'Chat Targum, if you're Chabadnik, you probably do a little bit of Tanya every day. So that's just, if you hear the word Tanya, you should know it's associated with Chabad. Now, altogether, there were 7 different rabbis of Chabad, and the 7th one is who you see in the corner, the famous picture. Now, he's so famous that if someone just says Rebbe, they know that they're talking about him. Like, no one's going to say, oh, maybe he's talking about another one, because he is the most famous one. However, the fact that he was going to be the 7th Rebbe was not clear, because the one who passed away before him, the 6th one, who's actually his father-in-law, he did not clearly say, after I passed away, you are going to be the next one. And part of the reason he didn't say it was because the Rebbe had a son, and a lot of this in Chassidut, it transferred over. The Rebbe has a son, and then his son becomes the next Rebbe, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Now, if he really wanted the Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson to be the Rebbe, but he had a son, it's a little bit touchy, and then his like. So he didn't exactly say clearly, I want you to be the next one, which created problems because now he passes away and the Hasidim need a new leader. And who is it going to be? And there were tremendous debates and discussions. Is it going to be his son, Rabbi Gurari, or is it going to be his son-in-law? The Rebbe was the son-in-law of the 6th one. He was married to his daughter. Who is it going to be? Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? And there's a really cute story about how they figured out who it's going to be. And the story, they say that the non-Jewish postal worker, he was the one who figured out who the next Rebbe is going to be. What does that mean? A fun fact, the Rebbe would get hundreds and hundreds of letters a day, which is like, I don't know exactly how much the President of the United States gets, but the amount of mail that the Rebbe got was really up there with like the President of the US. And one day the postman is passing by the Rebbe's office, and he sees a group of Hasidim arguing. So he goes to them, he goes, what's the argument about? They said, "Well, arguing who's going to be the seventh Rebbe?" And he goes, "Obvious." They go, "Well, it's going to be Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson." Why do you say that? Well, from the amount of mail that he gets, it's clearly going to be him. He's the one that people think are going to be. And he, the Hasidim really pressed him to be the seventh Rebbe. Please. And there were a lot of signs from the previous one that was really his wishes, but he didn't make it explicit. And in the end, he realized that he had to take this job upon himself. He did not want to take it upon himself. He didn't want a job in the public life. One of the unique things about the Rebbe is he was extremely educated. He spent years studying in Berlin and in Paris. He had a degree in engineering. Not only was he a genius of Torah, he knew everything about the world, and people that would come and meet with him and consult with him, the prime ministers of Israel would come and they would say things after they'd meet with him. They'd say, "Wow, this guy knows more about what's going on in the Knesset than the whole Knesset does." The president of the United States, Kennedy, met with him before he was president. Then there's a story about another president, I forgot which one, but when he would get letters from the Rebbe, he would take the letters to his house and he would personally answer them back. Presidents would go consult with him. Everyone would consult with him. And the really special thing was he's getting hundreds of letters. He opened every single letter by himself. He would not let anyone else help him. Now, the president of the United States does not, I don't even know if he opens any of his mail. The Rebbe would open every single letter. Why? Because he goes, people are pouring out their hearts to me. I'm going to have someone else open it. I need to open it. And I get a lot of emails a day. I get 70 emails a day. It takes me a very long time to answer. Could you imagine every day, hundreds of written letters, and you're sitting and you're answering them yourself. So that was one of the things which to begin to get a glimpse into how special the Rebbe was. If hundreds and hundreds of people are writing him mail every day, it means they want his advice. Now, a really important concept in Chabad. So here's another picture of the Rebbe. It's something called Yechidus, or Yechidus, like comes from the word Yechid, but because Chabad and Hasidus is an Ashkenaz kind of thing, that's how they pronounce it. Now, what it is, it means a one-on-one meeting. And for 30 years, the Rebbe would have one-on-one meetings with whoever wanted to meet with him. What were his hours? From about 8 p.m. to 2 or 3 in the morning, or even later. People would wait hours, and he'd sit and meet with the people, whatever he needed. It blows my mind and I guess everyone else is still, to think about the amount of attention that the Rebbe gave individuals, because especially when people, they have such power and stature and they're so important, and presidents are consulting with them, and prime ministers, they're going to sit and meet with the average person. And for him, that was what was important. Any Jew that wanted to meet with him, he would sit and meet with him. And one rabbi says he was meeting with the Rebbe. His meeting ended at 2:45 in the morning, and he was the 43rd person that met with him that night. I know from, I used to be a teacher in school. If I had one meeting, they're like, "Oh my God, the meeting was so long." And in general, people that have business meetings, like, how much do we say, "Yay, we have a business meeting"? You want the meeting to end. Sitting all night for 30 years and meeting with people. And another thing that endeared the Rebbe to everyone is the amount of languages that he spoke. English, Hebrew, Yiddish, German, Russian. What did I miss? Okay. I don't remember what I missed, but he spoke 6 languages, and he understood Spanish and Italian, bringing up to 8. So imagine you coming to meet this man and you only speak Russian, but it's okay. You don't need a translator because he understands you. And he would everyone that met with him, like meeting with someone like this makes it feel really special. You see how important he is as an individual. And towards the later end of his life, so the Rebbe had a stroke. Before he had a stroke, when he was older, the doctors advised him it's just not healthy for you to, when he's in his 80s, to be meeting with people. It's just too much strain. And he stopped meeting with people. But then he got a letter from a governor of the United States that said, "I'd like to meet with you." And the Rabbi said, "No." Why? He said, "When I decide that I'm stopping doing these meetings, it means I'm stopping. Because if I meet with you, you know what's going to happen? Then a Jew who I don't meet with is going to say, he might feel slighted. He's going to feel I'm not important enough for Rabbi to meet with me." So he said, if I'm not meeting with the president, if I'm not meeting with an average person, I'm not meeting with the president. And for someone to have such humility and say, I'm not meeting with anyone because I don't want someone to feel bad and think they're not important enough, like, wow, what sensitivity does that show? And another famous story is the Rabbi, when he would pray, he had a custom that he would cover his face partially. And this would happen almost every day, except there were a few specific times that his Hasidim noticed where he wouldn't cover his face. And he would have his talit down and he'd pray regular. And they didn't understand how come on these certain days he doesn't cover his face. And then they investigated a little, and they realized that the days that he didn't cover his face, there used to be this an Israeli man that would come and pray in the shul, and his face was like severely deformed, maybe from a war or something. And the Rabbi didn't want him to think that he was covering his face because he didn't want him to look at him. And there were people in the room that they would do everything they can to not look at him because it was uncomfortable for them. And he said, if this man is going to think for a second that I'm covering my face because I don't look at him, then I'm not covering my face. And he has a custom to cover his face. He stopped. And the sensitivity he had to every single Jew, which we see from multiple examples, was really, really special. Now, once he stops doing these one-on-one meetings, he needs to come up with something else. He wants to come up with something else because he still wants to have a relationship with the masses because that's what he valued. He valued relationships. He loved people. He wanted to touch them. So he had something which when I'll tell you what it is. I'm just so excited by all of this because the first time I heard it, I'm like, wow, what a great idea. He had something which is called Sunday dollars. So you guys see that there's a picture of the Rebbe and he has these crisp dollar bills and he's giving them to the kids. What is he doing? When the Rebbe could no longer have long meetings with people, he would have the people come to his office. He's in his 80s. He would stand for hours, and there were thousands of people that would line up for what? Because the Rebbe would give them $1, and he would bless them, wish them good. And I think the really special thing, other than that Rabbi is looking at every single person he's giving $1 to and giving them all, even if it's 2 seconds of attention when he's looking at them. And the Rabbi had these beautiful blue eyes. What's even more special? What do they do with the $1? The $1 is meant to be given to tzedakah. Now, imagine the impact that there's thousands of people, and this is going on for years, that are lining up and they're getting dollars to give to tzedakah. One, how much does it show how important tzedakah is? That this is what the rabbi is choosing to do, give you $1 to give to tzedakah. Now, in truth, what do people do? They were so happy that they got this $1 from the Rebbe that they didn't actually give in tzedakah. They'd save it and then give a different $1 in tzedakah, or maybe give more in tzedakah. So from the simple act of human connection and making all these people so happy, he was able to cause people to give thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to tzedakah and show them the importance of it. And he's standing up for hours and doing this. And this was what was important to him. Now, I want to, there's videos if you Google Sunday dollars. So I think it'll work. I'm going to click it. You see my screen anyway. I'll just show you a few minutes. Let me see if it works. Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to show you a video. For a minute, you'll see what it was like. So here's the Rebbe now, and his case, and he's giving each one $1. And he's meeting with thousands and thousands of people, and this is what he's doing. And I think it's just inspirational. Okay, so I'm gonna stop it. You guys get the idea. Let me go back to the slideshow. Okay, so that was another way he thought of, how do I reach the people? I want them to give tzedakah. I want them to feel special. Funny anecdote, not funny, but I'm using the word funny. I should just start giving these people names. One of my Chabad friends, his name is Shmuley. So he said his dad was one of the Chabad shluchim. He grew up in Texas, and he said one day he was, I don't know, maybe 7, and he wanted a Coke, and he didn't have money. And then all of a sudden he sees this album in his house that has all these dollar bills. So he goes, perfect, money. So he takes out $1 bill and he goes to the store and he buys himself a Coke. And then he comes home and his parents see that he bought a Coke. And so they didn't give him money for it. So they asked him, where'd you get the money from? So he goes, I took it out of the album. parents wanted to kill him. They go, what? Why did you do that? And they went back to the store, and then they ended up getting the dollar back. And then, like, I asked my friend Shmuel, like, but didn't you think it was a special dollar if it was in an album or something? He goes, I don't know. I was 6 years old. I wanted to cook. I found the money, and I went. So that's the Sunday Dollars campaign. Okay. Chabad campaigns. The Rebbe had, well, more than 10, but there's 10 main campaigns that Chabad ran, and I want to just touch on a few of them. I'm going to start with tefillin. I asked myself and I asked my Chabad friends, why out of all the 613 mitzvot that the person can do, is the one that Chabad emphasizes tefillin? Like, I don't know, maybe tefillah, like why tefillin? And there's a few nice answers that I discovered in my inquiry. One is that it says in the Gemara that a person that puts on tefillin, even if he only puts it on once in his entire lifetime, he's saved from Gehinnom. And in order to bring elevation to all these thousands of Jews, millions of Jews throughout the world, that this might be the only Jewish thing to ever do, that's the reason behind why they picked tefillin. Now, another beautiful idea is the time when this campaign came out of Chabad messengers putting tefillin on people, it happened around the time of the 6-Day War. And if you think about it, tefillin, it actually looks like a tank, like a tank in the army. And the Rabbi would call people that had this job of putting tefillin on other people, he'd call them tankistim. So you have, on the one hand, Israeli soldiers that are fighting in the war. Then you have, on the other hand, another battlefront, which is happening through doing mitzvot. And a byproduct of people being the ones that put on tefillin, and we spoke earlier about the Rebbe being someone that wants to create leaders rather than followers. Could you imagine the confidence it creates in a person? And the Chabadniks say, I'm 14 years old, and I'm going up to random people on the street, asking them if they're Jewish, and then I'm rapping tefillin on them. You know how much confidence you need to do that? So if they start from such a young, early age to do that, by the time they're older, they have the confidence to go out into the world and inspire people to do mitzvot. And sometimes people just need to be asked to do mitzvah to do it. So from such a young age, they're being inspired to do more. Other things I want to comment on for girls, it's lighting candles. And the Rashi Tevot of Ned Shabbat Kodesh is Neshek. So what does the candle look like? And this is like not the real. This is a cute idea that I heard in addition. A candle is like a gun. So you have the boys doing tefillin, the girls are lighting the candles, the battle, and then in the 67-Day War, and you have all these mitzvot that are also helping the Jewish people. Other campaigns, kashrut. The Rabbi said he'll pay for half of the expenses for people that want to kosher the kitchen. We also know if you go to Chabad house, you can find kosher food. He wanted to spread education, family purity. There's a lot of mikvahot in Chabad houses. This is from the Rabbi, tzedakah. Everyone should have a tzedakah box in their house. Nowadays, almost all of us do. It wasn't like that a long time ago. Everyone should have at least a siddur and a tanakh. People should go to more Torah classes. But most of all, people should learn to love their fellow Jew. So these were some of the campaigns that Chabad ran. Okay. One of the really unique things about the Rebbe was the way that he chose his words. And he believed that the words a person used and his outlook really, really shaped a lot of things. For example, one of the things he petitioned, which he didn't succeed in, but he took the word for hospital. And in Hebrew, hospital is Bet Cholim. And he said, well, that's not really a good name because it's very not encouraging. You're going to the house of the sick. How is that an encouraging place to be? He goes, we should call it Bet Havra'ah, a place where you're getting better. Imagine the effect it has on the psyche of a person if he knows he's going to a place where he's going to get better rather than the house of the sick. And the people from the army, the disabled veterans, disabled, it's a disabling kind of word. So we said, why are we calling you Nechim? We should call you Mitsuyanim, that you guys are appointed, because now that you guys have limbs and different things missing, it means that God gave you special powers that we don't have to be able to compensate for that. So we should focus on that. He didn't like say, if you would want to say that something is foolish, he would say, how do you phrase it? I have to look at it. I forgot exactly how I phrased it, but the point is that he would always try to state things in a positive form, and because he knew that the words that we use has an impact on how we think. So that's another really unique thing about him. His open-mindedness. One day, this rabbi came to him, he wasn't a rabbi. This man came to him, and he started a newspaper, and the newspaper gained a lot of traction in Crown Heights, and people were really liking it. And once it started gaining popularity, people said, a group of rabbis said, I think before you publish every article, you should go to a group of rabbis and have them look over the newspaper to make sure the content is appropriate. And the journalist thought about it, the newspaper writer. He said, sounds like a good idea. Let me go ask the Rebbe what he thinks. So he goes to the Rebbe, he said, Rebbe, my newspaper is really, really doing well. And in parentheses, the Rebbe was very into politics, was into the news. He'd read 4 newspapers, and he'd read them in different languages. He spoke 6 languages, so he'd read one in Yiddish, one in English, because he liked knowing from all the different English what was going around. So anyway, he goes to the Rebbe, he said, what do you think? The Rebbe looks at him and says, well, what if they decide to shut down the newspaper because they don't like the content? So the man doesn't answer. And then the Rebbe says, the job of a Rebbe is to teach Torah. We're the ones that are supposed to say, every minute you spend not learning Torah is bitul Torah. You should spend all your time learning Torah. The job of a newspaper is something else. The people that are reading newspapers are not the ones that are going to Torah classes. So why would you ask the rabbis for their opinion on the newspaper? The rabbis have one job and one goal, and the newspaper have another goal. Why should we be censoring it? And he goes, and in fact, if you yourself, as the editor, decide you want to include a little bit of Torah, who's going to be the ones that are reading it? The ones that aren't going to the classes. So no, he didn't say, no, I don't think the rabbi should be, he understood from the way the rabbi reacted that he didn't think that the rabbis should have a say in the newspaper. The rabbis, they want to have a say. They give the Torah shooting. The newspapers are for other different type of people. And the fact that he could be so open-minded to say, well, these things have different goals and we shouldn't mix them, shows his uniqueness. Another one of my favorites, he was very forward-thinking. I want everyone to look at these 3 magazines. They came out in 1981, called the Moshiach Times. I want you to look at the covers of each of them. And for us, modern day, I don't know that we're going to see anything that we think is strange, but there's something strange about it. I'm going to give you a little bit of hint, and then I'm going to tell you what it is. Think Hasidut, think people that have very, very strict divisions between men and women. Everything is separate. Look at the picture. What do we see? We see that there's girls on the cover. When Mashiach Times was coming out, the editor, the designer of the cover, the first version he had, it had a picture of boys on the bottom dancing, and it said the word Ahavat Yisrael. Ahavat, each one was carrying a letter, and Yisrael on the bottom and Ahavat on top, and there were girls on top each carrying a letter. So he shows it to a bunch of rabbis, and they look at it and they say, I don't know if it's so appropriate if there's girls on the cover. And then another one looks at it and says, you know what? I think I agree. It's not so appropriate. So what do they say? Okay, let's ask the Rabbi what he thinks. So they give him the magazine. He sees that there's girls on the cover. He goes, fine. Okay. Next magazine. They design the cover. And this one is for a magazine coming out for Purim. And there's a girl and a guy near each other. And they look at it again and say, oh, this one's not okay. The first magazine, okay, it had a girl on the cover, but at least the girls were on top and the boys were on the bottom. Now we have a girl and a boy next to each other. There's nothing divided them. I don't know that this is okay. So what they do, let's show the Rabbi. They show the Rabbi. Fine. Now another magazine comes out, and this time it's coming out for Pesach. And there's this boy, he's looking into this photo album, and the photo album has stamps, and each one of the stamps is one of the Sedari, like one of the, you have the Seder, Kadesh Ulchas, representing one of them. Now there was a lot going on the cover, and there wasn't enough room to put anything else. Like, it was a very busy cover. So they show it to the Rebbe, and he looks at it and he goes, where's the girl? There's a girl missing, put a girl. And for him, he knew that it was a very necessary and important change, that people would start getting used to the fact that, yes, girls are part of Judaism. And not only in the way we've been trained, if we think back to Mishnah, Gemara all the time, yes, we know the names of the Imahot, but Nabam, Nashi, do we know the names of their wives? Not really. And even in Hasidut, it's always, how is the woman portrayed? The woman is great. Why? Because she was self-sacrificing and she enabled her husband to go and learn Torah. It's all about the woman enabling the husband to be great, and she's the enabler. And the Rabbi explained, enough. The women are not just enablers. They are powerful in their own right. Now, this is in the 1980s. And this is what he was thinking back then. And he made sure that there were girls on the cover. Now, these magazines today, even of like more open, of pretty open organizations, they won't put girls in the magazine, let alone on the cover. And this is the 1980s. The Rabbi said it's not okay if there's no girls. So this is what's very unique about the magazine. A few other things that I want to share, which are important to know if we are listening now to a class on Chabad. A very important number for Chabad is 770. And if you ever get the question, did you ever go to 770? This is what they're talking about. What's this? 770 Eastern Parkway in Crown Heights. And you see the building, with the three big buildings right in front. That is 770. And this is where the Rabbi spent most of his time. His office was there. There was a shul in there. And because he spent so much time there, and that's where he answered the letters, and that's where he had private meetings with people, it became this really special place. And it's the picture we saw before of the shluchim was taken by 770. And it's somewhere where people like to visit. I know that people like having Chabadniks, they like getting married there, but where are you getting married? It's not exactly set up for a wedding hall. So literally they go to the sidewalk in front, they do the chuppah, and then they have the wedding hall somewhere else. So just something to know. I've never been to 770. After consulting with my Chabadnik friends, they said you could go, but you might not love the experience. Maybe some of you in the crowd have been. Everyone has their own experience. I haven't been there, but I am happy to say that I know what it is, because it was not the case a few years ago. I did not know what 770 was. Now I know. So it is where the Rabbi sent the son, his office, where his mailman story, 770 Eastern Parkway. Another very famous Chabad term that is important to recognize is called the Ohel. The Ohel meaning a tent. And the Ohel is where the Rebbe and his father-in-law, the sixth Rebbe before him, are buried. Now, I will say that I have been there. After reading the entire book, which I showed you before, which I hope you'll buy on Amazon, called Rebbe, and after doing 2 birthrights and asking all my questions, I was really, really, really inspired. And I said, the same way that my whole Chabad mission was, I want to know what the big deal is. I said, I want to know what the big deal is about this Ohel. I just want to see what it is. And my friend Shmuley, he goes, Adele, the Ohel is like 10 minutes away from JFK. I'm like, really? The amount of times I've been to JFK airport, I cannot even count. Thank God I have the wonderful beracha of living in Israel, and I also have the beracha of being able to come and visit home, my second home or my first home. They're both equal homes, America a lot. So I spend a lot of time in the JFK airport. And then he goes, yeah, it's like 10 minutes away. So then I said, you know what? I want to just see what it is, but I was embarrassed to tell them. I was like, nervous to tell my family because we're not Chabad. We didn't grow up Chabad. I didn't know what it was. And now I'm going to tell them, I'm going to the Ohel. I'm going to the Rebbe's grave. Like, I was nervous to tell them. So it was actually perfect that I landed one day from Israel. I was visiting my family, and nobody could pick me up from the airport. So I was going to take a cab home. And then I'm like, you know what? I either go now or never. I'm going to tell the cab driver that this is where I want to go. And I'm freaking out the whole time because I'm all nervous. I'm like, what do I do? I don't know what to expect. So one of my Chabadnik friends that I did birthright with, I'm like texting him. I'm like, what do I do? Where do I go? He's like, Adele, relax. Waze recognizes the Ohel. If you just type it in, you'll be able to get there. So happens to be the cab driver that I took was Jewish. They're really never Jewish, but he happened to be Jewish, and he happened to know exactly where to go. He's been there a few times himself. And then I was like, what's your name? I'll pray for you. So I went, and I'm nervous. I was like, what do I do? Where do I go? So then I walk into the building, and you see, it doesn't look like the grave is a building. So I walk into the building, and they have tables and chairs, and the cemetery is in the back, and there's literally a tent. That's why it's called the Ohel. And then you go into this tent, and then there's these 2 graves. One is of the Rebbe, one is of his father-in-law, and there's a ton of people there. Now, I'm not going to give really more details, and I'm not going to describe in depth what it's like to be there, because I can't reveal everything. And if you're interested, you have to go and see yourself. It was a very unique experience, and I'm happy that I had it because now I know what it is. But that was an experience I wanted. I said, if I'm on a quest to learn, and really what motivated me is like, Adele, you're not judging, you're just learning, you're being educated, just go see. So I went and I saw, and if anyone would like to know what it is, know what it looks like inside, and a bunch of other things, right near JFK Airport, go and visit. Now, I want to close with a few more things. One of the things I opened with was the concept of these yellow flags, the Rebbe's and Mashiach, and this is something that really, really, really bothers people. They say, okay, Chabad does a lot of great in the world. They spread people doing mitzvah. They give you kosher food where you are. But the Rebbe died. So how do they believe he's the Mashiach? A person that died can't be the Mashiach. We know that to be true. How could that be? And a lot of people have a hard time with it, and I did too. So I asked my Chabadnik friends, I asked the Rabbi Avi, and I asked my friend Shmuley, I said, what's this deal with them thinking that he's alive? And then like you hear all these stories, and in shul, sometimes they give him an aliyah, but how could he get an aliyah if he's not alive? And then more of me telling them, this is what I heard, this is what I heard, this is what I heard. How could it be? How could people believe? And then it kind of, all this respect I have for Chabad and for this Rebbe, I'm like, oh, well, I guess they don't have it because they think he's a Mashiach and he can't be. So that was what I thought. And again, not coming from a criticizing how type of mindset, rather from I want to learn. I said, what's the deal with the Rebbe being Mashiach? So I want to take a step back and say, the claim that the Rebbe was a Mashiach started in the Rebbe's lifetime. And when the Rebbe heard that people thought he was a Mashiach, he got very, very, very upset. He knew he's not the Mashiach. He doesn't want people calling him the Mashiach. And there's a story that once he was praying, and Hasidim, they have something, Nigunim, they have these songs that they sing and they sway, and they were singing, and then all of a sudden they added in these words, which let him know that they think he's a Mashiach. And he was so upset by it, and he almost refused to come down to pray with them anymore. They're going to keep calling him the Mashiach. And then they never again did that. And there's a story of a man that he had a meeting with the Rebbe, and the Rebbe saw that like something was off. He goes, what's the matter? He says, I want to ask you a question, but I'm like a little embarrassed about it. He says, ask away. He goes, I'm bothered. How could people ascribe to the Rebbe powers that the Rebbe doesn't ascribe to himself? Like people think you're this big, you don't say that about yourself. So how can people say that about you? And he looked at this man very sadly, and he said, people need crutches. Not that he's at all supporting it, because he was very against it, but he's like, what could I do? And towards the end of his life, he had a stroke, and he wasn't able to speak for a year and a half. And that's really when the Rebbe's Mashiach started gaining traction. And if he can't speak, how much could he oppose it? But from all the records we do have of when it started, when he was able to speak, he was extremely, extremely, extremely opposed. He prayed for the Mashiach to come. He didn't believe that he was it. And okay, so while he was alive, it's understandable that people might think he's a Mashiach, but then he died. Why do people still believe that? Now, something I discovered from reading the book and from consulting is there is actually a minority opinion in the Gemara that says that the Mashiach can be somebody that died that will come back to life. Okay? Now, this is not the mainstream opinion in Judaism. The mainstream opinion in Judaism is if you die, Harambam writes, the Mashiach needs to do this and this and this. He didn't do it, he died, he's not Mashiach. Rabbi Akiva thought Baal Kochva is a Mashiach, he died, he's not the Mashiach. However, there is this minority opinion, which could be what the Chabadnikim that believe the Rebbe is a Mashiach base their opinion on. They're right to believe that. And I think the more important thing that I want to share, and this is what my Chabadnik friends told me, they said it down. Do you know what percentage of Chabadnikim believe that the Rebbe is Mashiach? A very big minority. Most Chabadnikim throughout the entire world, they believe that the Rebbe was a great man, that he did a lot of things which we still feel the effect till today. And ironically, after the Rebbe died, there is no eighth Rebbe. That was it. It ended with him, but his impact grew after he died, and Chabad doesn't have a leader. He said minority of people believe that he's the Mashiach. But why is that what you know? Because they're the ones that make the most noise. And of course, if you see that, like in any religion, what do people think Jews are when they think of a Jew? They picture a Hasid because they look the most Jewish. When you think of Islam, you think of the radicals. In every religion, or you're always thinking of the radicals and you think that means everything else. So they said, these people, the minority, but you think that everybody, because that's what you see and that's what you hear. And that's right. When they're the ones that make the noise, that's what you believe. So he said, look, I am a member of Chabad. I don't believe that the Rebbe is Mashiach because I believe that he died and he's no longer the Mashiach. There's people that believe it. Okay, that's their belief. That's not the mainstream belief. Now, I was happy after I heard that because one, I didn't know it was minority. Like I thought it was everybody, and it made me feel better because I don't necessarily agree with that, although it doesn't really matter. And another unique thing about the Rabbi was whenever he disagreed with people, he would never use them by name. He would only talk about the opinions. He said, why? Because if I start using their names, then I might start making it personal. I'll just talk about the opinion. I don't agree with him, that's that. But I thought if we're talking about Chabad, that it makes sense that I bring up this issue of Mashiach. So there are people that believe it. It is not majority. Okay. Now, I wanted to summarize what we spoke about today. So Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, who lived from 1902 to 1994, we spoke about how he got the Congressional Gold Medal, about the mitzvah that he really, really pushed for, love for humankind and the Jewish people. We spoke about his concept, which is revolutionary, of sending shluchim to all corners of the earth to get Jews to do mitzvah, because he believes you do one mitzvah, it adds light to the world, and that's all you need. You do one, and then you build from there. We spoke about the background of Chabad, what it stands for, about the line of rabbis, where it comes from Yechidus. We spoke about all the mail that he got, that he answered one by one. Yechidus, and that's how they call the meetings in plural, the meetings he'd have all hours of the night with people. The Sunday dollars, when he was no longer able to do meetings, how he would give out dollars to people to give to tzedakah. We spoke about the 10 Chabad campaigns, about choosing your words wisely, how the Rabbi would always speak in the positive, about being open-minded, whether it's with the newspaper and knowing a newspaper has one audience, rabbis have one audience, or with, yes, we need pictures of girls on the cover. Forward thinking. So we mentioned important Chabad places. Now you guys know what 770 is, and now you know what the Ohel is. And we concluded with speaking about the Rebbe as Mashiach. That is the minority opinion, and there are people that believe that. And as the topic being a lesson in love and responsibility, I think one of the people that most strongly teaches us that is the Rebbe, because he was all about love, and that's what endeared him to people. And there's pictures of him all over the place. And when people see a picture of him, they just see a man that has so much love for humankind. And it makes you love humankind. The responsibility, he believed that he had a responsibility to, he didn't want to be Rabbi. He became Rabbi because he believed he had a responsibility, and he wanted fellow Jewish people to feel their responsibility towards everyone else. You know about Judaism? Great. Share with other people. And his shluchim represent that. There's over 5,000 couples in the world. In 100 countries is really, really something that's still growing. And that is Chabad, introduction to Chabad. Now, there is so much more to learn. I'm still learning. I'm fascinated by it. And I want to thank you for joining me. It was really, really enjoyable. If anyone has any questions now, I could take questions. Let me end my screen sharing. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Thank you everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed.